Well, you all are probably wondering how I got here, and I'm wondering the same thing myself. So I'm here restoring my Ryobi. I guess specific model is the RM300e, so I guess that's going to be kind of an important distinction to make. But yeah, so as with most of these Ryobi lawn tractors, right, it came with lead acid batteries that just didn't really last very long. So, I intended to do this as kind of a one-off video, just swapping out the battery and then going from there. But as I had mentioned in my Toyota RAV4 EV episode 1, I realized that there's going to be a bit more necessary than would fit in just a single video. So I guess this is going to be episode 1 of my Ryobi project, which is what it's really become at this point. So just to start with, right, because like I said, the batteries had gone dead. I don't know if I have footage of what that looks like, but basically as you try to accelerate or run the mower, right, you'll start to get a beeping sound. Doesn't matter, can have been like plugged in, freshly charged, full battery. And initially what happens as the batteries start fading, the behavior that you start to see is that as you go full throttle, maybe you're fine, but then you turn on the mower blades and then they'll run for a minute and then start to beep or error out. And then you're basically into almost like a turtle mode. But it kept getting worse and worse to the point where I couldn't even mow with it. Just engaging the blades, period, would set it off. And then it got to the point where just driving it would set off the battery, right? And so, you could creep along, but that's about it. And so I let it sit while I kind of planned. I had a lot of other projects going on and things to do. But we're in the middle of, we're heading into winter right now. And by the springtime, I need this to be up and running. I can mow by hand, I can mow fire breaks and things like that. It's just not as convenient with over 2 acres, almost 2.5 acres that needs to be cut down. So I really do want to get this up and running again. And I knew I was going to do a lithium conversion. I was just not set on how I was going to do it. Now, so initially I thought I could do like a Franken battery, just some of the old LFP cells I had sitting around, and then just pair that with a BMS. But then, something wasn't sitting right with me just about how exposed the battery tray is, because then I would be constructing a whole battery enclosure, right? Because these really are designed to be sort of out in the elements, out in the rain, cutting wet grass, dust, that sort of thing. So I had my eye on a golf cart battery replacement. And so one of the ones that was reviewed and seemed to be pretty good was this Temgo battery. But this battery in particular seemed like a decent price for essentially a 100 amp hour, 48 volt battery. The only thing that I had reservations on was that it initially, the reviews that I saw said that it didn't have any cold battery temperature controls. Basically with LFP, and it does get down to freezing here, so I don't want to damage a battery by charging it when it's freezing. So it turns out that no, that was actually incorrect. It did. So basically it kind of checked all the boxes, right? It had not only the low temperature cutoff, but it's also the IP67 water certification. So that was kind of important to me. But the old adage about measuring twice and cutting once, well, that might not have been what I did here. Is, I'd seen some other reviews of different Ryobis being swapped out, and I had assumed that this version had the same panel that you can basically slide out and you can swap out the batteries. This specific model, though, appears to have a different construction. in terms of how the batteries are placed in there. They, it seems like they welded actually into place multiple tray bars that create ridges, and it looks somewhat structural. So the problem with that is the overall dimensions of the Temgo battery that I got versus the old 50 amp hour lead acid batteries aren't that far off. There's a little bit of a length discrepancy, but most of that is due to the spacing that was placed in between the 12 volt batteries in the tray, and then of course the height discrepancy. But that height discrepancy wasn't enough on its own, right? When I looked at the 12 volt batteries inside the mower, there was more than enough vertical clearance just left over, right, that they would support a taller battery in their place. The problem is, though, that that ridge at the center of the tray lifts up another half an inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch. So that lithium battery is even taller because it's now sitting on top of that tray. So not only does it create a pretty slick surface that's not holding the battery in place, it's also now creating a vertical tolerance issue where it's too tall to actually sit inside and put the cover back down onto the Ryobi. So now I'm at a bit of loggerheads in this project because I really don't want to actually cut into the Ryobi at all, but I might not have an option if I'm going to go with the lithium battery. Now, I could still go back and do my original plan, use like 100 amp hour, like the LF 104 cells that I have from Eve, that will, in terms of footprint, basically they're smaller actually than the 50 amp hour lead acid batteries, so they would fit right within those enclosures. I could do, you know, 4 12 volt cells and then just link them together, and it would look almost identical to the 50 amp hour lead acid. The only difference being is, you know, then I would need to introduce my own BMS with temperature sensors, and again, I would need to create some sort of an enclosure to protect them. The other option is I can cut into that frame, try to preserve the structural integrity, and then place the 100 amp hour lithium Temgo battery inside, right, the tray. I guess the third option that I'm not really entertaining at this point is to try to find individual 12 volt LFP cells that fit the same footprint as the 50 amp hour lead acid batteries. But I'm going to save for, you know, if these other options don't work out, right? So I guess what I'm doing at this point then is, maybe because this is also meant to be informative and it's not just for me, it's for the community, I kind of wanted to see what, you know, your expectation is, or what you would like to see me do. Would you prefer to see me try to Frankenstein a battery or put a battery together? Or would you rather see me use this out-of-the-box golf cart lithium iron phosphate battery and then just modify the chassis in order to see if I can make it fit? Yeah, let me know in the comments. So one of the other things I was going to mention is the tire had gone flat on this Ryobi just from sitting, and it had broken the bead. So I was going to try to put that together myself. I couldn't get the bead to reset, so I took it down to my local tire shop, and they were able to reset the bead, and they didn't actually even charge me anything for it. So shout out to Safety Tire there in Willows, just off of I-5. So if you're ever in Northern California and need a tire replacement or need something done with your tire, you know, go ahead and stop by, give them a, you know, give them back for giving to the community. So I just wanted to give another shout out to them. They're a great business, and you know, they're basically the only place I go to for my tires and, you know, rotations and things like that at this point. So, well, as always, like I said, just let me know which do you want to see. I think I'm leaning towards trying to modify the chassis at this point for all of the reasons I mentioned about the IP67, water coating, the integrated BMS that's already there, the sealed system, the temperature controls already in place. So as always, thank you for watching episode 1 of the Ryobi RM300e project, and then look forward to some future updates. Like I said, hopefully on a weekly basis if I can get them out, and I'll get this up and running in time for the spring mow.